15.
Hello. I heard this brilliant story the other day about a guy who goes for a job interview, and the interviewer flicks through his CV for a while. He goes, yes. Yes, oh dear. And he says, tell me, what would you say is your worst fault? And the guy says, well, probably my worst fault is I'm perhaps a little bit too honest. And the interviewer says, well, come. I don't think we can really call honesty a fault, can we? And the guy says, I don't give a fuck what you think. I would tell you, that just occurred to me just now because it's sort of like, it's a topical story, really, because half the country's talking complete bullshit and the other half aren't calling them out, really. That's slightly why it has resonance with me. But let me take you back to 1918. It was the year that a guy called Max Planck, the wonderful German physicist, won the Nobel Prize for physics. I don't know if you've ever heard him, but any scientist will have done. He's the guy who basically discovered quantum mechanics, the theory of the very small, the sort of opposite of the theory of relativity, which is the theory of the very large, and a genius right up there with Einstein. He was, in fact, a great friend of Einstein's. Anyway, when he won the, you'll be wanting to have supper soon. When he won the Nobel Prize, he went round Germany on a tour, on a lecture tour, talking to every city in the country. And everywhere he went, he gave the same talk about this amazing new science, quantum mechanics. And everywhere he went, a chauffeur accompanied him and used to sit in the audience just down there so that when Max Planck had finished, he could get away as quickly as possible. Anyway, they got friendly, as you often do with your driver. If you've been driven around, they got friendly, and this Max Planck was a very nice guy, and they got chatting after each talk. And after a while, the chauffeur said to him, I'll tell you what, Professor, he said, it must be very boring for you, giving the same talk everywhere we go. He says, when we get to Munich, how about I give the talk for you, because I know it off by heart now. He says, and you can sit in the front row in my chauffeur's cap. So Planck, who had a great sense of humor, said, that is a funny idea. And he trusted him that he would remember it. And so they got to Munich, and the chauffeur got up on stage. Max Planck sat in the front row in the chauffeur's cap. And the chauffeur delivered this absolutely brilliant, word-perfect speech about quantum mechanics. And Planck was sitting in the front row nodding admiringly, saying, this guy is seriously clever. So it went well, and then came the Q&A. And a professor got up from the back and asked a question about quantum mechanics, and there was a long silence. And the chauffeur said, he said, I'm quite surprised in such an intellectual city as Munich that somebody should ask such a simple question. He said, let me get my chauffeur to answer it. There's a sort of point which I'll come to in a minute, which is, well, there are 2 points, really. That is the way that people are taught at school. I'll just leave that thought with you, which they are taught to remember things without necessarily understanding them or being able to answer questions that are off the syllabus. So that's a point I'd like to live with you. The other thing is that I haven't brought my chauffeur with me, but I do invite you to chip in if you see anything that you don't like or something you don't agree with, because I think that would be quite fun. But I'm here, I'll just get out of the way, first of all, what I'm here to do, which is to plug this book, 1,423 Quite Interesting Facts to Bowl You Over. It's the 17th QI book. I expect some of you who may have heard of QI don't even know we do books, but we do. This is the 17th QI book of various kinds, and it's the 6th in the series of these books. They're all little chunky books like this. This is called 1227 QI Facts to Blow Your Socks Off. And they look like this. They look like little Japanese haiku, okay? And they cover the entire universe from Max Planck downwards in a sort of little chunky factoid way. I'm going to read you the beginning. This is the first book that came out 6 years ago. Asteroid 1227 is called geranium. The ozone layer smells faintly of geraniums. The center of the galaxy tastes like raspberries. The universe is shaped like a vuvuzela. These are all true, these facts. Light travels 18 million times faster than rain. The Queen is the legal owner of 1/6 of the Earth's land surface. The name of the first human being in Norse mythology is Ask. And finally, everybody expected the Spanish Inquisition. They were legally obliged to give 30 days' notice. Now, these are extraordinary facts. They are all true. They are very, very carefully researched. And what's interesting about them, as I say, they're all 4 to a page like that. It looks very simple, but it contains history, geography, physics, biology, chemistry, you name it. And if you doubt any of these facts, for example, the center of the galaxy tastes like raspberries, how the heck do they know that? It does, chemically anyway. Its spectroscopic analysis of the center of the galaxy shows that the same chemicals are in that are in raspberries. But supposing you doubt it, you go online to qi.com 1227 in this case, you dial in page 1, and instead of 4 facts, up come 4 sources. So that might be National Geographic, this might be Gardener's World, this might be The Times, this might be New Scientist, and it'll give you the source of the fact in detail. It'll give you the essay that it was taken from. And a lot of teachers now are using these books to start lessons off with. It's an absolutely brilliant way. There may be even some teachers in the audience who do this. You start with the fact. It's what in modern educational theory is called the hook. All trainee teachers are told they have to have a hook. They have to start each lesson with a really interesting thing to get the kids' attention. On top of all the marking they have to do and all the applying the national curriculum and all the discipline and all the forms they have to fill in, this is a really hard thing to do, and this saves them the bother. We have lots of letters from teachers who say, I am the most popular teacher in my school. Everybody loves my lessons because they start off with an amazing fact, and because they've looked up the source the night before, they know the answers when the kids go, why is that, miss? Why is that? And I'll tell you exactly why it is. So this is a thing that we're very interested in at the moment at QI. I mean, you probably think, isn't Stephen Fry clever? What a genius. How does he think of all those things himself? But there's a team of researchers behind him called the QI Elves. And we are very interested in this new way of potentially educating people. Because I'm the oldest at QI, because I started it. But all of us, some have first-class degrees from Oxbridge, some people have never even been to university. And rather like Ruthie was saying about the hierarchy in, was it Sean, about the hierarchy within the River Cafe, there's nobody in charge. It's what they call a flat hierarchy. And all these people are curious and slightly crazy. And we all consider ourselves that our education began the day we joined QI, because the way that QI works is what is required is the curiosity of an ordinary 5-year-old child and the diligence of a professor. That's all. It's nothing else. It's nothing to do with being conventionally educated. It's nothing to do with having a high IQ. It's just being curious and then being diligent. So these books have all these extraordinary facts, and I'll read some out of 1423. When dieting, Queen Victoria ate what her doctors advised on top of her normal meals. In 2017, 6 Chinese officials were punished for falling asleep in a meeting about how to motivate lazy bureaucrats. Most of the white sand in the Caribbean is made of parrotfish droppings. You might have seen Blue Planet the other day, Blue Planet 2. We were ahead of them. We found that fact before Attenborough. Let me think. In 2017, a Brazilian great-grandmother discovered that the figure of St. Anthony that she'd prayed to for years was actually Elrond, an elf from The Lord of the Rings. The Oval Office has pressure pads under the carpet so that the Secret Service knows exactly where the president is at all times. Oh, he's over there by the fridge. He's by the desk. The advertising, another thing here in the present, the advertising for Trump World Tower claims it is 19 floors taller than it actually is. And lastly, Salvador Dali went to restaurants with his pet ocelot, claiming it was a cat with a pattern painted on. That was Salvador Dali. So we're very interested in this way of educating people. You do it the way that you make it fun, you make it interesting, and we call it, as it were, learning upside down. The way that we currently teach people is we start with the most difficult things it's possible to remember, which is 2 sets of hieroglyphs, which is the alphabet, squiggles, and some numbers. And most of us divide into, they either get the number squiggles or the word squiggles. I was a word person. I never could do maths. I find it absolutely terrifying. To this day, I can't read a balance sheet without feeling slightly sick, or a budget. And I used to cry when I was sent off to do my times tables. I actually had to be sent to the Isle of Wight for 3 weeks with an old lady, have them literally beaten into me in order to pass the 11 plus. So I think everybody has difficulties with education one way or another. And I've started to get a bit keen on driving this forward as a thing that we've learned to do over the last 15 years of discovering facts and then talking about the hinterland behind them, as it were. So I've got involved in a certain number of, I've been to a couple of educational conferences recently, one in Cambridge and one in Belfast, where I had to address the headmasters and headmistresses conference. I was a bit nervous of going to Belfast, actually, because one of our researchers has a friend there who's a vet with the PDSA, the People's Dispensary for Sick Animals. And she was telling me the story about him. He said there's 2 kinds of people who come to the PDSA, because it's a free service, obviously. There's the sweet little old ladies who worry overly about the health of their darling little kittens and so on. And the rough yobbo types, I'll see you later, who have got pit bull terriers and the like, and want to get something for nothing. So one day the vet got a call from someone who said they were worried that their Rottweiler puppy wasn't growing properly. So with a heavy heart they said, okay, bring the animal in and I'll have a look. So after examining this animal for a short while, they said, I don't know how to break this to you, but your Rottweiler puppy is in fact a guinea pig. So I was a little bit nervous about going to Belfast, but and the other thing that was really annoying about addressing this conference is I completely forgot the story I was going to tell them, which the headmaster of my kids' school told, rather poignant story about education, when one of them was in there finally at speech day. And he said he was sitting in the school dining hall one day at break. There's a sweet little girl sitting just over there, and she suddenly said out of the blue, please, sir, how did you become a headmaster? And he said, well, very interesting, one so young taking an interest in my chosen career. Well, he said, my dear, obviously you have to work very hard at school. I'm sure you do. I've been told you do, whatever your name is. Well done. Well done indeed. He said, and if you work hard at school, you get what we call A-levels, and that allows you to go to university, where you do what we call a degree, and if you get a good degree, then you can go to what we call teacher training college. And you learn to be a teacher, and then if you're lucky, you get a good job in a good school, and if you're good at that, then you eventually become a head of department, who are obviously the smartest people in the school, and from those heads of department is chosen the head teacher, like me. And he said, why do you ask, my dear? And she said, I heard Mummy talking to Daddy the other day, and Daddy said, how on earth did that man become a headmaster? Good story. I really could talk for an hour, and I did actually the other day in Birmingham about education and how QI could make it better. There are so many things I would like to talk to you about. One of them is that teachers should relax if they're asked questions by the children. It's very important that children, if you read the national curriculum, as I was doing the other day, God, that's a boring document, but if you try and read it, it says children's curiosity should be encouraged, but that isn't really the way they're taught. They're taught to remember what the answers are supposed to be. So we think that children should be encouraged to ask questions as much as possible. Another thing that we think is that there's a vital need right now for a different way of educating. I don't know if you've ever seen Ken Robinson's brilliant talk on TED, one of the most watched talks on TED, about why we don't teach creativity in education. AI's been mentioned tonight. Artificial intelligence, we're all terrified that the robots are going to take all our jobs, and they are going to take certain kinds of jobs, but there's two kinds of artificial intelligence. There's artificial limited intelligence, which is a computer that can do one thing really well, play Go, play chess, drive a bus or whatever, and artificial general intelligence, which is to think like a human being, okay? I was speaking to a wonderful professor of artificial intelligence called Nigel Shadbolt the other day, who said he'd been in, he was in Oxford at the time, Oxford professor. He said he'd been in artificial intelligence for 40 years, and as far as artificial general intelligence goes, creativity in other words, we've got absolutely nowhere. We're no further forward than we were 40 years ago. In fact, I read a paper recently by 3 brilliant AI researchers who said not only have we not created artificial intelligence, we haven't even created artificial stupidity. So you don't need to worry. There's all sorts of things. This is called Moravec's paradox. Some things that computers can do that we adulate as being very difficult, higher mathematics, corporate law, that kind of thing. Robots can find those very easy. Lacing a pair of shoes, which any 5-year-old can do, they still haven't made a robot that can lace up a pair of trainers. Would you believe that? So we need to teach intuitive, creative problem solving, not lists anymore. Lists were for the Victorians. We don't have an empire anymore. We need to create flexible-minded, open-minded, curious, ornery, rebellious kids and let their minds open. I just want to show you, I'll demonstrate finally this 15 years of QI research, how intuitive we've all become. It opens the mind to a greater awareness. I'm going to enlist the help of Eleanor there, if I may, to think of a number. Okay? No, don't tell me now. Okay, think of a number, right, okay. Okay, double it. Yes, yes, yes. Add 3. Okay, take away 1. And take away the number you first thought of. Quite difficult for a non-mathematician like me. Yeah. Got it? Tell me the number. Yeah, okay. And the number is? 15. Ladies and gentlemen, this is amazing. This is amazing.